Hey everyone, my name is Johnny. I am an independent journalist and filmmaker. Pause, yes, I know some of you are asking, am I actually doing this? Yes, I'm actually doing this. We're doing a deep dive on UFOs.
Ha! Why UFOs are suddenly everywhere. We have proof. 6.5 million views 2 weeks ago. Sounds interesting.
UAPs is what the government now calls UFOs because UFOs, again, has been completely tainted by this stuff.
A UFO sighting over multiple cities.
I don't know what the hell it is.
An extraterrestrial event that changed the course of history.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's totally stupid and totally sensationalistic. Let's take a look at your intro for why UFOs are suddenly everywhere. We have proof.
US military officials have gone before a Congress hearing releasing once classified videos from private helicopters.
144 unexplained sightings.
Yeah, I guess that puts the alien civilization people at like a 9 and you at a 7, maybe?
I've now done like 3 videos with the New York Times, like the old newspaper, that even won an Emmy.
You're the first winner. Blue states, you're the problem.
I don't work at the New York Times, but I'm a YouTuber. I'm an independent.
In many ways, the 2004 Tic Tac event is the starting point for a new era of UFO investigations. And again, big props to the New York Times.
Problem.
I don't work at the New York Times, but I'm a YouTuber. I'm an independent.
Breaking the news that the Pentagon had been investigating UFOs in secret since at least 2007. As more and more of these unidentified flying objects were being reported and talked about in the public, the Department of Defense finally assembled an official, unidentified aerial phenomenon task force.
Actually, it's more the US government investigates UFOs remedial edition.
Something very familiar about all this.
For slow learners. You see, back at the height of the Cold War, there was an awful lot of military spending in the US. The US was investigating up to 70 cases of UFO sightings per month. And over the 15 or so years that they studied these UFOs, Project Blue Book collected over 12,000 UFO reports and concluded that most of them were misidentifications of natural phenomena like clouds or stars or conventional aircraft. Summing up their 15 years of study and their 12,000 UFO reports as no UFO reported, investigated and evaluated by the Air Force was ever an indication of threat to our national security. There is no evidence submitted to or discovered by the Air Force that sightings characterized as unidentified represented technology developments or principles beyond the range of modern scientific knowledge. And there is no evidence indicating that sightings characterized as unidentified were extraterrestrial vehicles. 12,000 reports, 15 years. And now for the slow learner edition.
Know that our service members have encountered unidentified aerial phenomenon. And because UAPs pose potential flight safety and general security risk, we are committed to a focused effort to determine their origin.
In the best traditions of politics, forgetting why it was closed down last time. The reasons that they closed Project Blue Book was because it cannot be justified either on the grounds of national security or interest in science.
This is where I start to get pretty excited about the potential here. Because look, this is like a real high up person in our intel community in the military who's talking about getting more data on this, on studying it. Keep going, Mr. Moultrie.
Yeah, I think this is why we start quoting things like those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. You're getting excited about a new department of UFO studies with a dramatic zoom in because you wouldn't want to dramatize serious reporting while ignoring the fact that they've already done it with over 10,000 UFO sightings and came to these conclusions. Ultimately, Project Blue Book stated that UFO sightings were generated as a result of a mild form of mass hysteria. I wonder what that would look like.
Like, yeah, I get it. The translucent cube thing is like more tantalizing, but like the fact that these pilots report seeing these UAPs, these UFOs, all the time, day after day, week after week.
Nobody's paying attention to this. I mean, this seems like a watershed moment. I mean, we have all this tape of objects defying the known laws of physics right next to U.S. military installations. The military admits it. Why is this not page one news everywhere?
Well, it should be, absolutely. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
A mild form of mass hysteria, individuals who fabricate reports to perpetrate a hoax or seek publicity.
These are the witnesses of one of America's most unusual UFO encounters in history. Navy veterans and a band of brothers that want you to know that what they witnessed is real. This is their story.
From one of the most specialized flight programs in the world.
I don't identify as a UFO person.
Like, these pilots don't have incentives to make this stuff up.
Dumbest reporter ever. Like, seriously, you would think she'd be interviewed for Reuters if she was just a regular pilot. Oh, well, of course, no incentive to make stuff up there then. Anyway, where were we? Individuals who fabricate reports to perpetrate a hoax, blah, 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 psychopathological persons, or misidentification of various conventional objects. You know, like birds or planes. But we'll come back to that later. But probably the most damning observation is that the number of high-definition cameras on the planet is at least 1 million times higher than it was in 1952. And the number of images captured on those cameras is probably 1 million times higher as well. Yet the average quality of the UFO image remains fuzzy blob recorded on a potato.
Am I actually doing this? Yes, I'm actually doing this. We're doing a deep dive on UFOs. I'm actually doing this. I'm applying my journalistic lens to a topic.
And this is where you think your journalistic skills need to be deployed. Really? I'll cut to the chase. The hill he chooses to die on, his most convincing evidence, which of course has to be set to intriguing music. You know, because serious journalism.
One of those unexplained sightings was this one from 2004, the one we started this video on, the Tic Tac incident.
Oh, Johnny, did you back the wrong horse?
The report often cites lack of good data, and indeed, what we have here is not the best, but we still have 4 sets of eyeballs.
That's nothing! Project Blue Book had over 10,000 sets of eyeballs. And I'm sure a lot of it would have sounded really intriguing if you'd have just read out those reports.
We have an official Navy report.
Like this one submitted to Blue Book, where police officers Dale Sparr and Wilbur Neff spotted what they described as a disc-shaped silvery object with bright lights emanating from its underside at about 1,000 feet in altitude. They began following the object, which they reported sometimes descending as low as 50 feet.
Hovering stationary on the radar for a short amount of time and then departing at high velocities, high turn rate.
The police from several other jurisdictions were involved in the pursuit. The chase ended about 30 minutes later near Freedom, Pennsylvania, some 85 miles away.
My god, the story is so exciting. We're Tom's going over it with an orange highlighter. But you know what would probably make it a little bit more convincing? Would be some actual evidence.
We have an official Navy report gathering facts from that day. Technicians seen this thing descend from 60,000 feet down to 50 feet in a matter of seconds.
And it never once struck you as odd that all the things about this thing breaking the laws of physics and aerodynamics, you know, things that we've used to make planes for the last 100 or so years, none of that is captured on the actual video. Which is why you have little animations like this for the completely absurd claims. You don't think that was just kind of a little too convenient?
Hovering stationary on the radar for a short amount of time and then departing at high velocities, high turn rates. This video, which is kind of uninspiring and grainy and not very long, but still shows us something, with its infrared not capturing any heat signature, any means of propulsion, as this thing flies around at mind-boggling speeds.
Yeah, you're an idiot. I mean, let's start with the obvious stuff. Here is a plane recorded in the infrared. Can you tell me where the obvious signs of propulsion are? In fact, could we actually just claim this UFO has no obvious signs of propulsion? But there are other UFOs that I've seen from my balcony. I mean, this one was a hypersonic UFO that broke off and launched itself into orbit in a matter of seconds. Completely violating all the laws of physics. or this strange set of glowing objects in the sky. All of these, of course, are at least as good, or probably better than, all of these declassified Pentagon UFO videos. In reality, of course, this was just an insect flying by, and this was a flock of birds flying by. Meanwhile, in reality, of course, a plane flying away from you will look like it's hot in the infrared, kind of like this. And rather than it departing at high velocity, what you're actually looking at there is just the tracking camera mount looking at a distant object and just losing its tracking for a split second. So I've done a little augmented reality just to show you what's going on here. So on the top there, you've got the most important bit, which is, is the camera pointing to the left or to the right? There you've got roughly the cockpit, which is the direction the plane is going. It turns out it's not, it's slightly to the left. Don't worry about that too much. But the map that you have here is about real size. So the size of the moon and the size of the field of view of the camera is about right. So when he zooms in a factor of 2, you get half the field of view. And when he zooms out, then you get about twice the field of view. So at the moment, he's got about 3/4 of a degree of field of view. So you can see the size of the object relative to the moon. Now, the top camera assumes that the pod is tracking perfectly, and the bottom one assumes that the object stays in the middle of the field of view. So about now, when there's a little spasm, you get some idea of, just how little the pod had to twitch in order to keep the tracking. So that's when it almost loses the tracking on the object for the first time. Now, towards the end, what you'll see is he drops out to a wide field of view, then zooms straight back in, which is where the video cuts off. But what I want you to do is pay attention to the bottom video, which assumes that the camera pod just stops moving, and you see that the object just moves out of the field of view as would be expected. So all of the eyewitness accounts say it had no engines and no signs of propulsion.
Can you talk us through the technology that you witnessed?
If you can imagine a 47-foot-long Tic Tac, they didn't have any wings, they didn't have any propulsion system.
Whereas the infrared shows it's clearly hot, kind of like plane engines or something. All the accounts say it was maneuvering violently and hypersonically, whereas the actual video shows it making no maneuvers whatsoever. And the plane, far from chasing down anything, is in straight level flight the whole time.
Weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I chased a UFO.
And only at the very end is there a slight twitch in the camera mount. So the Tic Tac, apparently sometimes it just hovers there static, and then occasionally, it just zoomed off to one side. Did you see it move? And now it's transformed into some sort of blobby thing, and then it's hovering again, and oh no, hang on, wait, it's just a plane coming into land. And, so this is the digital stabilization, which is pretty good. I'm actually moving the camera around quite a lot, and you can see the vignetting coming in there, right? But occasionally the vignetting, if I zoom out, you won't get the vignetting anywhere near as much. And the digital stabilization will work quite well. But yeah, that's not actually the object moving there. The object is a plane coming in to land. And the plane flew backwards. Planes can't fly backwards like that. It broke all the laws of physics. And of course, if we add a little dirt to the camera lens, then people will mistake the dirt on the camera lens for texture in the background, like so. And boom, there's your evidence of a supernatural plane that's flying backwards.
Capturing any heat signature, any means of propulsion, as this thing flies around at mind-boggling speeds. Better stories, completely new and fresh formats, and to cover more topics with a further degree of rigor and factual accuracy.
Yep, that was it. That was his most compelling case, for there is something strange in the skies that nobody can explain.
That aside, there's still no satisfying theories that I could find that explain the 2004 Tic Tac case. Could be Russia or Chinese secret drones, or even experimental aircraft that we ourselves have been developing.
But let's just say he's not exactly unique in his inability to identify really, really mundane stuff.
The fact that we have military personnel that witnessed multiple objects, and not only were they eyewitnesses personally, but we have it on official DoD video, it doesn't get better than that.
And the 2004 Nimitz incident is the best evidence we have to begin to answer that question.
Look at this. It's incredible.
It is absolutely, there it goes.
Look at that.
And I've got to say, I'm super impressed by how much people sensationalized your slightly twitchy camera mount.
When one of the ship's fighter jets engaged a strange object in the sky, capturing footage of the incident on its infrared camera.
This is not some crazy person with their cell phone on Instagram, right? This is a $15 billion aircraft carrier with its radar systems.
Yeah, let me just read a little more on why Blue Book was closed down. The basic attitude and approach within Blue Book is illogical and unscientific. It would be like believing that you can get hundreds of encounters with UFOs by fighter pilots where they're seeing them on a daily basis.
To me, what's actually more compelling about what this guy just said is...
because we were seeing these so much.
He is saying that these pilots have been seeing these things...
essentially all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Like, yeah, I get it. The translucent cube thing is, like, more tantalizing, but, like, the fact that these pilots report seeing these UAPs, these UFOs, all the time, day after day, week after week, that to me is more compelling evidence that we need to evaluate here.
But none of them can seem to quite operate a camera, to take a decent picture of one of them. Seeing them on a daily basis, and this is the best pictures they've got.
And then there was this incident in 2021 where a Navy pilot was filming out his window with a phone and caught this. Yeah, you probably missed it. Let's just slow that down. This. Like, what is this thing?
I don't know, let's see if we can zoom in and enhance to see what that can possibly be. But that can't be right. How can something fly with no obvious signs of propulsion and no visible exhaust? How can any of our pilots be safe till we can identify this clear and present danger?
But they also mention the safety of their pilots and their very expensive hardware.
And of course, we all know aluminiumized balloons wouldn't show up on radar. It's not like they use almost exactly the same thing in radar reflectors. Like the cubes frequently used to track high-altitude balloons.
Apex or the corners of that cube, best he could tell, were touching that inside of that sphere.
Wait, hold on, did you catch that? Not the weird cube inside of a translucent sphere, whatever. These videos and images were shot by Navy pilots who were on duty and have confirmed to be authentic by the United States government.
What are we observing?
What you see here is aircraft that is operating in a U.S. Navy training range that has observed spherical object in that area, and as they fly by it, they take a video. You see it looks reflective in this video, somewhat reflective, and it quickly passes by the cockpit of the aircraft.
And is this one of the phenomena that we can't explain?
I do not have an explanation for what this specific object is, but in this case, we have at least that.
For the first time in more than half a century, a House panel is holding a public hearing on mysterious flying objects, popularly known as UFOs.
Yeah, hundreds of UFO encounters, and this is the best picture they got. Oh no, sorry, they got this one too. If only I were a professional, award-winning journalist so I could apply my journalistic lens to how improbable it is that you would get the odd escaped party balloon downwind of, say, some major East Coast population centers.
He told us his F-18 squadron began seeing UAPs hovering over restricted airspace southeast of Virginia Beach in 2014.
Oh, sorry. They managed to get these amazing pictures of them with the world's most sophisticated aircraft in the world's top military.
Every day for at least a couple of years.
Wait a minute, every day for a couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
The Times reporting also revealed that there were other videos. The next year, in the same area, a Navy pilot captured a small round object traveling at what looks like very high speeds over the water.
Yeah, it's a duck, or a balloon or something. It's certainly nothing of any interest or value. And the apparent movement is because of...
Guardian became the very evil he had wished to destroy. He became Parallax.
Tell
Guardians. It's parallax.
Now, I know what a lot of the UFO people out there will be saying right now. But wait, these were professional pilots.
These videos and images were shot by Navy pilots who were on duty and have confirmed to be authentic by the United States government.
Second Lieutenant Jake Jensen, West Point, graduate with honors. We're here because you're looking for the best of the best of the best, sir.
The best of what America has to offer. They're not going to misidentify a bird as a hypersonic vehicle. Yeah, tell me how my analysis from years ago has aged, Johnny. You know, versus the professional pilots.
Remember this video of the fast-moving round thing that the pilot was freaking out about? Turns out that the Pentagon analyzed this, knowing everything they know about where the jets were and what tools were being used to record this moment, and they calculated that this was actually just like an optical illusion. Like, this object actually isn't moving that fast. Only like 30 miles an hour.
They're reporting to us that they're seeing something that they can't explain, and it's also being backed up by the video evidence.
Luis Elizondo is the former director of a Pentagon program that investigated UAPs, and he's been pushing.
I feel obligated to just check in and make sure we're all on the same page, okay? First, we know it is a fact that the US government has observed stuff in the air that they can't explain.
This is a clip from a 60 Minutes report on, of all things, UFOs and the US military. Watch this.
A Navy aircrew struggles to lock on to a fast-moving object off the U.S. Atlantic coast in 2015.
Wow, CBS really did their due diligence there. I mean, your suspicion should have been first clued in when, yeah, you can just about make out it flapping its wings. You know, boom, 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 boom.
But these must just be weather balloons, right?
Well, the weather balloons that are expressing technologies that are far beyond our current understanding of aerodynamics, things that are maneuvering in ways that no aircraft that we are currently aware of has that capability.
Because a headline like Elite Top Gun US Pilot from Aircraft Carrier Spots UFO on Infrared has a little more clicking power than, I don't know, someone misidentify something mundane on infrared camera. I mean, Tucker Carlson, he's a reporter with a real news channel. This isn't fake news, this is the real news. Inside the Navy's 2015 encounter with a UFO, 1 million views 2 years ago. UFO footage released by Pentagon, raw video 5 days ago, 2 million hits.
And that would include this video. It shows two Navy pilots encountering something bizarre off the east coast of the United States. Okay, these are guys who fly for a living, who know what other airplanes look like, including those maintained by foreign governments, and they're totally shocked by this. This is one among many incidents like it.
A mild form of mass hysteria. Yeah. I wonder what that would look like.
We are now witnessing a tipping point. You see, the burden of proof used to be on the believers to prove that UFOs are real. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the government and the military to prove that they're not real.
Flight performance characteristics.
The former director of a Pentagon program that investigated UAPs.
It's potentially like one of the biggest stories of my lifetime. And I don't care if it's about UFOs or whatever you call it. Something that we don't understand is getting very close to our military aircraft, and the government isn't responding adequately. And I hope you keep sounding the alarm on this.
Damn, what a gullible breed.
But the evidence is overwhelming. We have all this information from U.S. Navy pilots. We now have metrics. We can actually measure how fast they travel, how high they are, what kinds of centrifugal forces that they can experience. And science, remember, is based on things that are testable, reproducible, and falsifiable. Now we have testable information. A game changer.
Yep, apparently US Navy pilots really couldn't identify something utterly mundane. And all of those people working on the basis that these were trained observers, and so it must be something special if they couldn't recognize it. Who do I trust? A wing commander who has nothing to gain from this? Or you? Not you.
But when that same story is told by some of the most qualified observers on the planet, it makes you wonder.
Maybe these trained observers needed a little more training.
These are small. but the ones out there are far away.
If only we had something like 10,000 previous cases of this, maybe we wouldn't keep making these mistakes. The irony being, not only did this argument about trained pilots being professional observers make the rounds on the sensationalist news.
So, given what we know about their physical behavior, but the physics involved in the way these aircraft fly, what do you think the chances are they were created by human beings?
Well, I think there's only two alternatives left now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go ahead and suggest that you've not actually looked at the data on this.
One is perhaps they are hypersonic drone vehicles. After all, the Russians, the Chinese, and the US are experimenting with hypersonic drones.
Yeah, I'm going to love seeing how you square a hypersonic drone being overtaken by a plane traveling about half the speed of sound. But not only that, they had fighter pilots come forwards who were confident that this was not something mundane. Actually making videos about the Go Fast video is not debunked. Next time, ask an actual fighter pilot. Someone who had been an F-16 pilot for 18 years.
So what I did, guys, I thought, like, how can I explain this to you? Like, it's so obvious to me that it's kind of hard to explain. Sit in your garage and hold up a bright light and try and debunk stuff, or you could just ask someone who's actually done this shit for decades and show you definitively with physics and models and...
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
So I just had to go back to basics, right? And that's what we do, man. That's what fighter pilots do. We draw it out, okay? It's just so obvious that he's wrong, and yet he's going on national TV and he's saying, just spreading all this misinformation. So I'm gonna prove easily, it's so easy to prove. I mean, before you do that, dude, please ask someone, anyone who's doing this, who's used one of these things. It's obvious to anyone who's ever flown these things is you can't focus at something 10 miles away and then focus at something 5 miles away. It just is not how physics works.
Yeah, I give you a fighter pilot's expertise on optics. Camera's got to have a focal length, right? I mean, oh, hang on, wait. That thing in the foreground that says Mama Shelter is 5 miles away. And the stacks behind her are a power plant about 10 miles away.
And then focus at something 5 miles away. It just is not how physics works, right?
And that was basically the core of his argument. You know, as a trained professional fighter pilot with 15 years of experience.
Is obvious to anyone who's ever flown these things is you can't focus at something 10 miles away and then focus at something 5 miles away. It just is not how physics works.
You're talking about individuals who have very high security clearances. They are trained observers. We've actually paid them and put them through schools to be trained and very keen observers to scrutinize what they're seeing.
Right, and that's what we do, man. That's what fighter pilots do. We draw it out, okay? We pencil, paper, man. There's not much video on the internet, so I can't really blame people for not understanding how this stuff works, because a lot of it is classified. And
yeah, why do I get the feeling the Simpsons were thinking of this guy when they created this meme?
God bless the idiot-proof Air Force.
Don't worry, Skrull. Now there are plenty of tards out there living really kick-ass lives. My first wife was tarded. She's a pilot now.
A fucking goose? What? Does he think we're idiots?
Yes. In your 17 years of experience, you never managed to grasp the basic level of optics, like what is focal length and depth of field, or why thermal cameras don't always give accurate temperatures. And you're the guy claiming to be an expert. Yeah, I think they had guys like you in World War II as well.
We had a saying in the Army that when the British bombed, the Axis took cover. When the Germans bombed, the Allied took cover.
Like, how would fighter pilots ever fight anybody?
But when Americans bombed, everybody took cover.
So the whole thing about they're trained professionals because they fly expensive planes, and therefore they're good at identifying stuff, not such a great argument. As Johnny will explain to us again.
Or remember this video of the triangles in the sky, filmed off of that destroyer?
I certainly do. I kind of remember debunking it years ago, when it was being reported like this.
In night vision video from a Navy destroyer, a mysterious flying triangle above the deck of the ship. The Pentagon confirming the images obtained by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell were taken by Navy personnel.
The Pentagon has confirmed a strange and unexpected sight captured by Navy personnel off the coast of California. The video shows flying pyramid-shaped objects hovering above the USS Russell and another warship.
It was leaked by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell.
Did you see the Pentagon confirmed leaked images of videos of UFOs buzzing over the Navy? Did you see that?
Well, Erica, there's another such video out that the Pentagon has confirmed that military in the state shot, and this is it. It was taken aboard a U.S. warship in July of 2019. It's a night vision shot that appears to show several unidentified triangles that are flashing in the clouds. This is off the coast of San Diego. And one of the triangles appears to join other triangles before the video abruptly ends. Again, the Pentagon has said this is a video shot by our personnel.
Christine, yeah, so this filmmaker, he just released this video that was taken by the U.S. Navy. He says that this is the best UFO video that has ever been released to the public.
Yeah, I wonder how that busted video has aged.
It turns out that this was more just quirky optics.
We're now reasonably confident that these triangles correlate to unmanned aerial systems in the area. The triangular appearance is a result of light passing through the night vision goggles and then being recorded by an SLR camera.
Expected to be a part of a report on unidentified aerial phenomenon to be presented to Congress this summer.
Recently released images may not convince UFO skeptics, but the Pentagon admits it doesn't know what in the world this is.
Yeah, within seconds of seeing this, I knew exactly what it was. Being an astronomer for some 40 plus years and having spent a lot of time under the stars might have helped a little. It's a plane. It's an out of focus plane flying past some out of focus stars. Or no, let's be fair, it might be aliens. It's just they're so generous in turning their FAA compliant navigation lights on when they're flying around Earth. But people kept sending it to me. And then I checked out some of the videos, which had millions of hits on them.
What you're seeing are vehicles with a propulsion system that is not a reactionary propulsion system. It appears the propulsion system is a field propulsion system, that these craft might possibly be gravitationally propelled.
Alternatively, if you don't like your fleet of triangular-shaped UFOs, because it's not illegal, you can actually just focus the camera, down to points. And then, of course, it's not quite so cryptic anymore.
John, this is a very big day. I mean, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee describes this as one of the great mysteries of our time. And it's a big day for all of these people who have spent so many years pushing for more transparency into this topic.
You can actually just focus the camera.
But especially for those Navy pilots who actually saw these things with their own eyes.
We're just guessing one possible explanation: they couldn't. Our military was completely outmatched technologically by whatever these were.
Let me get this straight. The stunning evidence of a bird filmed in the infrared and an out-of-focus commercial plane, and literally thousands of sightings that didn't yield a single piece of evidence, is now apparently evidence that the US military is being massively outperformed by infrared bird and out-of-focus plane. But let's be fair and give the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence and Johnny one last chance to show that they're idiots.
It turns out that this was more just quirky optics.
We're now reasonably confident that these triangles correlate to unmanned aerial systems in the area. The triangular appearance is a result of light passing through the night vision goggles and then being recorded by an SLR camera.
These objects are probably foreign drones trying to spy on US military maneuvers. Yeah, they might not be triangle in shape, but that's still really useful information. We should know if there are foreign adversaries floating over our Navy
No, really, unmanned drones spying on the US military, which is really useful information because foreign adversaries always turn on their FAA compliant navigation lights when they're spying on the enemy.
You get a way deeper look in what it's like to be an independent journalist on YouTube in this day and age.
You're professional independent journalists or trained Pentagon intelligence officers who can't recognize when a camera's out of focus. Or recognize basic things like navigation lights.
I'm actually doing this. I'm applying my journalistic lens to a topic.
Yeah, I get it. We can't all do actual research in our journalism, especially when it takes so much time and mental effort to film and highlight all that stuff that people said for which there is no actual evidence. Or putting on all the dramatic sound effects.
Any means of propulsion as this thing flies around at mind-boggling speeds. This. Like, what is this thing?
Sure, it makes stuff entertaining to watch. An independent journalist with a totally open mind investigates UFOs has been the source of clickbait yellow journalism since forever. And Johnny's contribution here was to water it down just a little bit. But even at that, we know the videos like mine here, which show how mind-blowingly simple these unexplained phenomena are, will get 1% of the traffic of the clickbait of Navy pilot chases UFO. But I guess this is why there are still some folk out there who support me on Patreon, because, well, my videos might not be the best production values. They are effective. Look, legacy media used to be almost zero intellectual content with great production values. Old school YouTube flipped that. But more and more it feels to me like YouTube is morphing into legacy media. You know, focusing on people walking around doing research to dramatic music in front of cameras. Look, the second people start making claims like this.
Technicians seen this thing descend from 60,000 feet down to 50 feet in a matter of seconds.
Claims that, of course, are nothing new. Blue Book had claims like this too. You have the simple, obvious explanation, which is the radar glitch, or something similar.
Sir, there are 6 of them. Bearing 215, range 150 miles. Oh my God, a dozen more of them.
And when you get the objects performing things that you know is impossible from basic aerodynamics. Look, this is what one atmosphere of air looks like. And you know that to move through it, you've got to wait for it to get out of the way. Which is why very fast travel through the lower atmosphere is impossible. This is why commercial planes typically fly at about 10 kilometers where there's not much air left, and hypersonic flight takes place much higher where there's only about 1% of the atmosphere left. Yeah, if you want to move through the fluid of the atmosphere, you've got to move through the fluid. It's not magic.
Technicians seen this thing descend from 60,000 feet down to 50 feet in a matter of seconds.
Ballpark figures. This is what one atmosphere of pressure looks like. Up where the commercial jets are, it's about 1/10 of that. And up where hypersonic vehicles operate, it's almost space. Look, Concorde flew pretty high and pretty fast. And even at that, it got pretty toasty from the frictional heating. If you'd have tried that at sea level, the plane would have melted. Or another way of looking at it is what happens when a real object comes in from space, like, say, for instance, the space shuttle. It's basically a hypersonic vehicle, and when it starts coming into contact with the atmosphere, it gets pretty hot. You come into the lower atmosphere too quickly, and you basically melt the spacecraft.
100 years ago, most people were still riding around on horses. They would have looked at our modern world, all of this, and thought that certainly aliens had come to take over. Certainly some crazy magician had come and reshaped the entire planet. And that's exactly what happened. Crazy scientific breakthroughs happen all the time.
No, they don't. The basics of the thermodynamics of burning fuel to run heat engines has been unchanged for about 100 years. Hell, the thermodynamics it runs on is unchanged for 200 years. And from this field of science that's been around for some 200 years, we understand that if an object moves through a fluid like the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds, it's going to get hot. It's a thermodynamic inevitability. No advances in technology will change that because it's basic thermodynamics.
Real answers only come when you have real inquiry with real tools to measure and analyze real data. from the real world.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Let's siphon research funds away from real research, whatever, researching for a cure for cancer or something, and put those millions of dollars of government funding into researching UFOs, such that panicky idiots can dismiss the obvious conclusion that out-of-focus plane, bird, and twitchy camera mount are not a threat to national security as some great conspiracy.
The evidence that I've presented here is solid. Solid sources, solid reporting. If I had evidence like this for any other story that I'm doing, I'd be like, this is solid evidence. Let's put it in the story. Okay? We know that is true. Oh, and it's not just the few events that I've mentioned here. According to this report, there's been 144 of these instances, either from the US military or government personnel.
Oh wow, 144, that's so impressive. Hang on, didn't Bloomberg have over 10,000 before being wound up after blowing millions of dollars of government funding?
Instead of cobbling together the scant evidence that we have to fit some narrative that we want to believe, let's go out there and gather data and analyze it and build a body of knowledge about this. Let's poke at these phenomena and figure out what the hell is going on in our airspace. At the very least to keep us safe, but potentially so that we can discover something new, something that we can observe, measure, analyze, and learn from.
With the conclusion that it cannot be justified either on the grounds of national security or interest of science.